Take out your pen and paper and write this down, kids. Don't ever confuse or mix work duties with romance. And if you want to know why I'm warning you about this and hope you'll follow it, then listen to the following summary all the way through. Careful, because as always, there are spoilers. This story begins with a couple enjoying a passionate afternoon together. His name is Jira and hers is Picha, whom they affectionately call Pug. After their encounter, they stay and talk, and it's revealed that they're not a formal couple since they plan for this to be their only time together, as they feel they're not compatible as boyfriend and girlfriend. While he runs a bar called Smile at a young age, she is a real estate agent from a wealthy family. During one of their conversations, Pug tells him about a painting by an artist she really likes, which is on display at a museum. The painting, titled Correction, features two moons, and in the center of one of them there is a rabbit. Pug finds it poetic, and even though Jira thinks art is pretentious, he listens to her fondly. After this, they say goodbye and go their separate ways. She returns to her wealthy family where everything is practical and lacking in affection, especially with her mother, who constantly compares her to her flawless sister, Plern, making Pug feel like she is always living in her shadow. However, not everything in Plern's life is perfect, because Pug is keeping a secret. She discovered that her beloved sister's husband, Lag, is unfaithful to her and witnessed him getting out of a car with another woman. However, to avoid family conflicts and being labeled a liar, she decides to keep this a secret. Then, a flashback shows Pug visiting Jira at his bar on the same passionate night they shared, where they both talk about how complicated it is to be overshadowed for being the child of a family like theirs. And another thing they have in common is that he also has an older brother who, unlike him, who chose to run a beach bar, decided to go to university. In response to his concerns, Jira tells him that parents love their children in different ways, and even though she isn't as successful as her sister Plern, that doesn't mean their parents don't love her too. Back in the present, Jira visits a museum to see the moon rabbit painting, hoping to meet Pug there, but she finds out that the painting has been sold. For his part, Pug visits the museum shortly after Jira has left and then receives a long-awaited call from an executive who makes him an excellent job offer. Two people searching for the same painting, but at different times, as if fate were playing a game to keep them from meeting, or at least not just yet. However, this news is not well received by his mother, who tells him that she is tired of him wasting time on dreams and job offers instead of fully dedicating himself to the family business. The next day, Pug receives another call from the executive, who turns out to be the assistant to Anita, a businesswoman. Immediately, Pug sees this as an opportunity to impress his parents. According to what Anita said, she needs to form an alliance with someone who owns a prestigious venue in Thailand, and she quickly thinks of Jay, a popular host who owns a bar on the coast. Meanwhile, Jira takes his mother, who is in a wheelchair, to the doctor for a general checkup, showing that he is a good son, at least in theory. Until he receives a call from his assistant, who informs him that someone is interested in doing business with him and his bar. He is utterly shocked when he realizes that it is none other than Pug. And for her, it is also shocking to discover that Jira and Jay are the same person. Instead of feeling happy, Jira reacts angrily to the business offer as he feels that Pug is taking advantage of his feelings for her own benefit. And to our surprise, despite what they said to each other that day, Jira reveals that they have been talking and seeing each other for 10 days. And during all that time, it seems that Pug has not been completely honest about her identity and her job. It's understandable that he thinks she's taking advantage of him. However, Jira's business partner tells him that he can't be so naive and reject an opportunity just for romantic reasons. In other words, the one making a mistake here is him. Shortly after, Pug seeks out Jira to apologize for not having revealed some of her personal matters. She insists that the collaboration would benefit them both, but he once again rejects her offer. Throughout all this, it's clear that Pug is tormented by her mother's words, who has given her an ultimatum. If in the next few months she doesn't come up with 3 million Thai baht, her mother will force her to work under her sister, Plern. And what could be worse than that, since having a sibling can already be a burden sometimes? Just imagine if that sibling was your boss. Anyway, even so, our stubborn protagonist insists on meeting our guy again, apologizing to him once more and assuring him that, in fact, she is desperate for his help, since she would rather die than be forced to work with her arrogant sister. This ends up convincing Jira, who agrees to the business deal as long as there are no more lies between them, and she opens up so he can truly get to know her. It's a total win-win. Shortly after, Anita arrives in Thailand to meet with Pug and Jira. It's clear that Pug feels jealous about the flirtatious way this businesswoman acts with Jira. And to make it up to Pug, Jira invites him out for a drink at a restaurant. But their intimate moment is interrupted by a group of customers. When she sees them, she gets so scared that she hides behind the menu as if she had seen a ghost or something. Among that group is Maprang, who comes over to greet Jira, being a regular customer at her bar. After this, Pug leaves the place, while Jira demands an explanation for her sudden attitude. She tells her that there are married women in that group and finds it reprehensible that they're out with other women, something Gira doesn't care about at all. Later on, Anita keeps manipulating Gira to sleep with her. Although he goes along with her a little, they haven't actually been intimate. However, this woman still doesn't give up and even asks Pug to help her share the same room with Gira during a business trip the three of them will take. Oh, how awful! Even so, this trip turns out to be quite beautiful thanks to all the landscapes that Thailand has to offer. Nevertheless, Pug soon feels like a third wheel since the other two act like a couple, leaving her alone at a restaurant to go together to the hotel where they'll be staying. After a long night of loneliness and drinking, Pug returns to the hotel in a pedicab, where she runs into Gira and immediately starts a heated argument fueled by alcohol, in which she reproaches him for his closeness with Anita. The argument ends with Pug slapping Gira, and in response, he picks her up and carries her to the hotel pool, throwing her into the water without a second thought. After that, he gives her a towel to dry off and invites her to sleep in his room, since there are 2 beds. Although she is still upset with him, she ends up accepting. Meanwhile, Anita suspects that something is wrong because Gira didn't go to sleep in her room. And the next morning, our lovebirds Gira and Pug walk around the hotel grounds while he tells her about his family, especially about a piece of land that belongs to his family, which is related to the business he's learning with Anita. The hope is that they can open a new bar in that area. It turns out that Gira's grandmother lives nearby, and without hesitation, he decides to visit her accompanied by Pug, who gets excited thinking that this girl is her grandson's girlfriend. And what if the only person who sees love where it truly exists is the one who has lived long enough to recognize it? Everything is laughter and fun, until both of them are confronted by, of course, Anita, who sarcastically says to them, "I suppose you had fun without me all day." And after that, Anita confronts our protagonist and tells her that she saw from the hotel balcony how, the night before, Gira playfully threw her into the pool. So she asks her for an explanation and warns her that her relationship with him shouldn't ruin the business plans they have together. Shortly after, Pug tells Gira about this and they both agree that they need to be more careful and not show their peculiar friendship in front of Anita since she seems impulsive and could abandon the business plan if she gets upset. For her part, Gira resorts to flattery, giving Anita a flower to keep her happy and focused on the business plan. On the other hand, as Pug returns home, she can't help but blush when thinking about the moments she's shared with Gira. Nevertheless, she's one of those girls who claim not to believe in love, only in business. So she keeps telling herself that she needs to get this supposed relationship out of her head. It's easy to say you don't believe in love when loving you has cost so much. Her cynicism isn't coldness, it's just a defense mechanism. Poor thing. Meanwhile, Gira takes Anita to see the property, revealing that she intends to be the investor for a new bar, one much bigger than the one he currently runs. She also suggests that it doesn't necessarily have to be a bar. It could be a restaurant or a resort, given the size of the entire property. For this, Gira knows she has to keep Anita happy and, in fact, kisses her when they return to the hotel. Meanwhile, Pug takes care of the administrative side of the business, though she can't help but think about Gira and even calls him to ask how his day went, although she pretends her real intention is to talk about the property. Next, we see a rather steamy scene in which Gira and Anita get ready for a night of passion. Although this is only a nightmare of Pug's, who feels consumed by jealousy. The truth is that Anita already has her eyes on Pug, calling her assistant to ask her to investigate everything about her, determined to keep her away from her beloved Gira. This turns out to be complicated since this pair of lovebirds finds moments to meet in secret, especially now that Pug has returned to the hotel, supposedly to show him what she has done regarding the business. But the problem arises when Anita shows up at Gira's door. Upon entering without a second thought, Pug is forced to hide in the bathroom of the room, praying that Anita doesn't discover her. And at the same time as all this chaos unfolds, the businesswoman makes Gira a proposal in which she suggests selling the land and moving with her to Shanghai, where they can continue doing business and have a relationship, assuring her that this is a unique opportunity. Not satisfied with this, she asks Pug for help to convince Gira to move to Shanghai for 6 months, which leaves Pug bewildered. And who wouldn't be? After this, Anita says goodbye to Gira and Pug, telling the boy to keep her offer in mind, while also telling Pug that she too will earn a large sum of money if she manages to convince Gira to go to Shanghai. My god, you really put me in a tough spot. Money or love? Or money? On top of all this pressure, Plern also asks Pug for a favor, to help her expand her business internationally, and she has the nerve to suggest that, since Pug doesn't have a steady job, she should be a good sister and help her out. Our protagonist refuses and also receives a harsh scolding from her mother. This leaves the girl devastated, as she's gotten used to no one in her family really caring about her and her sister always being the main priority. As a result, she decides to meet Gira at a restaurant, but when she arrives, she feels disappointed, especially when she sees him talking to another woman. Because of this, she decides to just leave without saying anything. However, our leading man goes after her to ask her to come back, which gives them a private moment together. Nevertheless, the woman who was talking to Gira watches them from afar, full of resentment and envy. After this, the two of them talk at Jira's bar about selling the land, hinting that once the deal is done, they should still remain friends. However, at this point, their relationship has evolved from a simple friendship to a deep emotional connection, which culminates in a beautiful kiss. This act surprises Pug, who initially pushes him away abruptly and runs off toward the beach, telling him not to kiss her again. Although it's clear that she only says this out of pride and because she's worried that Anita will find out and ruin the whole deal. And speaking of Anita, we move to Shanghai, where we find out that she's not having the best of days. Not only is she far from her beloved Gira, but she also has to deal with family conflicts that are driving her to the brink of madness. Next, we see that our protagonist has her own plans to move out of the family home and cut those toxic ties for good, forever avoiding comparisons with her sister and the fact that no one in her family seems to care about what she wants. As usual, Plern tells her that what she's doing is selfish and that she should stop acting like a child and accept her role in the family. No, don't fall for that manipulation. If you don't feel comfortable, leave. It's the best decision you'll ever make. So if you feel like Pug, do what she did and go far away. And soon after, her Prince Charming Gira comes to her rescue, not only offering her a shoulder to cry on, but also helping her find a place to stay. Men like that are worth 1,000. Meanwhile, Anita talks with her assistant, confessing that the more difficult Gira gets, the more she wants him. She won't stop at anything until she makes him hers. Oh no. She even contacts Pug to remind her of their deal. She has to convince Gira in exchange for a large sum of money and unlimited work contacts, exactly what she needs to prove her worth to the family she just left behind. But speaking of her family, we find out that Pug only gets along with her father, Kitty, who supports her in all her decisions and wants her to pursue her own dreams. That night, things get complicated when Kitty has a meeting with Anna, Jira's mother. This leads to both lovebirds being in the same place, creating some tension since they want to keep their relationship a secret. However, a flashback reveals that their relationship isn't as idyllic as it seems, since they had an argument about their true feelings for each other, as he doesn't understand why she insists on going to Shanghai with Anita. Furthermore, she avoids him and asks him to pretend they don't know each other in front of her family. On the other hand, we find out that the woman who was at the restaurant with Gira a few days ago is a friend of Plern, who tells her that her sister is dating the famous owner of the coastal bar. Without thinking twice, Plern confronts her sister and starts insulting her. Luckily, Gira comes to her defense and clears things up, assuring them that they are simply business partners. The next morning, Anita calls Pug to ask him to prepare the documents for the sale of Jira's grandmother's land, which makes Pug happy, as he feels that he will finally be able to prove his worth to his family by closing this business deal. However, the only person who congratulates our protagonist is her father, who tells her how proud he is of her and invites her to dinner to celebrate her success. Shortly after, Pug and Gira talk, and we find out that, with the sale of the land, Gira will have enough money, so she won't have to keep working at the bar, so she plans to move back to her family's village permanently. Our protagonist doesn't like this, telling Gira that they've formed a connection and that she's not willing to lose it so easily. And as expected, Pug cries, lamenting that her romantic chance with Gira has vanished forever. Shortly after, a day before Gira returns to her village, the two of them talk once again. And there we find out that Gira will be going to her village for 6 months while construction takes place on her grandmother's land, and she takes a break from her exhausting work at the bar. So, the two share a farewell hug, and the next day, Gira meets up with Anita on her way to the village, ready to start the business together. Through all of this, Anita never misses a chance to get closer to Gira romantically whenever she can. He, feeling that he owes her all the money he's about to get, finds himself unable to resist her hugs and kisses, and they even end up sleeping together. But in Jira's mind, the only thing she thinks about is Pug, whom she remembers every time she looks at the moon. Meanwhile, Pug meets with Wasu, a businessman with whom he plans to do business soon. Immediately, she notices that the man has the painting of the rabbit on the moon in his office, which clearly indicates that he is quite wealthy and also seems interested in getting to know Pug. However, she only has eyes for Jira, looking wistfully at the boy's Instagram stories, while he, from his village, does exactly the same. Despite the distance, they both stay in touch through phone calls. Naturally, Anita doesn't like this and starts acting like a jealous and possessive girlfriend, monitoring Jira's calls, which forces him to find other ways to reassure her. However, she slowly loses control and reproaches him, saying he should actually feel grateful for having done business with her. You know, the typical attitude of a manipulator who thinks you owe them everything just because they did you a favor. On the other hand, Plern is facing her own problems after discovering her husband's infidelity. Now, when she runs into the supposed mistress, Maprang, at a restaurant, she doesn't hesitate to cause a scene and attack the woman in the restroom. Despite this, Lack defends himself, claiming that he would be incapable of cheating on her and that she should know that after so many years together. He explains to her that this woman is just a friend he met at a party, but of course she doesn't believe him and breaks down in tears, thinking that her marriage is over. And speaking of romantic and family conflicts, Anita has to deal with her brother Chen, who reproaches her for spending her money on Jira's land, accusing the young man of being an opportunist who sleeps with his sister for money. And it's not a lie. Meanwhile, Pug keeps talking business with Wasu, and it's clear that the young man is interested in her beyond just work. But things get complicated when the two of them take a trip to a remote restaurant and run into Jira working there. Next, the Lovebird protagonists have a private conversation, and we find out that Jira has changed his mind about selling his grandmother's land, which has caused a conflict between him and, of course, Anita. After the awkward encounter with Chen, he realized that all of this was a mistake. Later, the two of them go for a bike ride around the village, talking about the future of their relationship. The next day, Pug meets up with Wasu to tour the village, looking for a plot of land to buy together. Everything is going well until the girl runs into her father, who is holding hands with a woman who is not her mother. This, of course, greatly disappoints our girl, especially when Kitty confesses to her that the woman in question, named Araya, has been his partner for almost 10 years. So, the man tries to explain the whole truth to his daughter. For years, his marriage with his wife has stopped working, and they are together more out of convenience than love. In this way, he started this relationship behind the mother of his children's back. And although Pug tries to be empathetic with this information, she can't bear to look her own father in the face after this revelation. Next, we find out that Pug's mother was already aware of this infidelity, but has kept it a secret to preserve the appearance of her perfect family life. However, she makes it clear to Kitty that if either of her daughters finds out about the affair, she will make sure to ruin his life during the divorce. Meanwhile, Jira returns to the Smile Bar and soon after seeks out Pug to talk about what they've been through together. There, she shares with him how devastated she is after finding out about her father's infidelity, and he offers her his affection and emotional support, which leads to the two of them ending up sleeping together. And to add even more drama to everything, Pug's mother finds Jira in her daughter's room and accuses him of being a male escort. You know, the kind who does favors and gives happy endings. But fortunately, he's known for not keeping quiet, defending both himself and Pug, and telling her mother how wonderful her daughter is and how she's changed his life for the better. After this, the lovebirds leave the place by car. Meanwhile, we see that Anita is not at all happy with what has happened recently. So much so that Jira cancelled the sale of the land since the young man is spending a lot of time with Pug. So the woman decides that if she can't have Jira all to herself, she'll make his life impossible, threatening to sue him for breach of contract since he had signed a document before cancelling the purchase of the land. And not satisfied with this, Anita approaches Pug to threaten her as well, claiming that she is a veteran in the business world and will do everything possible to make life difficult for both of them. Finally, she pushes her into a pool and laughs wickedly. Meanwhile, Jira returns all the gifts Anita has given him, looking to close that chapter between them. For her part, Pug meets up with Wasu, who offers her a towel to dry off and shows her the famous painting of the moon rabbit that he has hung in his house. Afterwards, both continue with their business projects, and it's clear that Wasu is in love with her, although Pug has made it clear that they can only be friends because her heart belongs to our leading man. In fact, at another moment, without thinking, Pug confesses to her family that she is in love with Jira, much to the dismay of her mother, who still believes the young man is a male escort. Faced with her family's silence after this revelation, she decides to leave home. After this, she goes to a restaurant where Jira and Anita are talking about business and asks the young man to leave with her, which he does without hesitation, leaving Anita devastated. Meanwhile, our lovebirds enjoy a fun trip to the beach. For her part, the witch Anita talks with Kerr, her business partner, who informs her that Pug is working with Wasu on a new project. Not satisfied with this, Kerr visits the Smile Bar, where she seduces one of Jira's friends to get more information about this young man. After this, Kerr tells Anita everything she has discovered, from how Pug and Jira met to the fact that they are now officially a couple, which leaves Anita hysterical. Meanwhile, Plern gets the revelation she needed when she discovers her husband Lack affectionately hugging not just one, but two women in a cafe. So she confronts him again about his infidelity and suffers a severe nervous breakdown, crying uncontrollably inside the place. And someone else who's also having a rough time is Pug, because she finds out that Anita will also be working with her and Wasu, and, as expected, Anita is ready to make her life miserable. Right after, Pug talks to Wasu, telling him she won't work with him anymore if Anita is present, but he replies that she should let go of childish grudges and act professionally. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Not stopping there, Wasu tells Pug that her boyfriend sells his body to other women and that she deserves someone better. So he also thinks he's a sex worker. What? This makes our girl angry, and she throws a drink in his face before leaving the company and telling him she's no longer willing to work in such a toxic environment. Afterwards, she heads to Jira's hometown, where he welcomes her to meet his family. Everything goes quite well, and they prepare lunch for everyone. A little later, the lovebirds look at Jira's grandmother's land and consider that, instead of selling it, they could start a new business together as a couple. They also buy a replica of the painting of the rabbit on the moon as a symbol of their union as a couple. At the end of it all, they both gaze at the moon together and promise each other that even though the future is uncertain and full of obstacles, they will do their best to face life hand in hand. The rabbit on the moon appears one last time, no longer as a symbol of distance, but as a promise, because true love does not seek perfection, only companionship in the darkness. And perhaps that is the secret of this story. In the end, it's not about finding the moon, but about finding someone to watch it with. And now, click on another video, or else Anita will show up and ruin this perfect ending.